All right. So welcome everyone to our third monthly technical webinar on healthcare focused topics. Today's topic is how VMware is helping our customers in lowering their infrastructure costs using software-defined storage and hyperconverged infrastructure. Just to introduce myself, a lot of you guys know me, but there are other members who joined today. I'm core solutions engineer at VMware. Today we have several presenters. First, we have Gilbert Leal. He's our senior systems engineer from our software-defined storage and hyperconverged team. We also have Greg Arellano. He's also our software-defined storage and hyperconverged engineer. He's focused on healthcare on healthcare customers. We also have Michelle Ball. She's our account executive for software-defined storage and hyperconverged. We also have our vSAN specialist, Christian Rober. He will be helping us with the Q&A in the background. The other thing is, we would like you to ask questions. And to make it more interesting, we have a little contest today. We will be giving away, or Michelle will be giving away an Amazon gift card for the best question asked today. So on the other hand, since there are a lot of or several VMware employees are also on this webinar today, this contest is only for customers, not for, if you're a VMware employee, you won't get anything, just to clarify. To ask question, you can unmute yourself, because by default, when you join, everyone is muted. So you can unmute yourself and ask question, or you can put the question in Q&A. I have noticed that in some older version of Zoom, the unmute option is not available. So if you still want to ask question on the phone, you can ask me and I will unmute you and you can go ahead. All right, so let's go and take a look at our today's agenda. So today, like I said, we will be focusing on software-defined storage and hyperconverged. And then we will also look at what are the current challenges in healthcare as far as the infrastructure is concerned, and how we can help in those challenges. We will take a deep dive on how vSAN actually works, what's the technical requirements, and what are the key components of vSAN and hyperconverged. Then we will kind of look into what are the key benefits of vSAN in healthcare. So we will focus on really specific healthcare use cases like EMR and remote clinics and disaster recovery and VDI and PAC storage and so on. We also look at some of the differentiators that vSAN brings, because there are other software-defined storage providers. So how do we differentiate from them? And then in the end, Gilbert will go over some of our live optic assessment option. And Q&A, you can ask questions during the webinar or in the end. Either way works. So I will let Michelle take over and she will kick it off. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Everybody, can you hear me okay?
You're good, Michelle. Yep.
All right, good deal. So I'm going to kick this off. I'll try to be quick. We have a lot of slides. You might be hearing the term out there called digital transformation. And if you're an IT healthcare IT professional, it might seem like either a no-brainer to you, or it might be kind of a heavy lift. Essentially, what we're seeing out there is traditional three-tier architecture just can't keep up with the demands of the business, healthcare specifically. Back in the days when your hypervisor, when we came out with a hypervisor, obviously we revolutionized the marketplace with vSphere. It was kind of the first wave in data center consolidation. It also separated apps from storage, and it relied on external storage arrays to really use the hypervisor's main features like vMotion. And while external storage has served businesses very well, the highly manual process that came out of that siloed compute network storage architecture just can't keep up with the rate of change. The hyperconverged infrastructure really instills servers and storage together, and we think it's going to lead to the next great wave of data center consolidation. Hyperconverged delivers a lot of benefits. It accelerates your business and it enables IT to respond quickly. It consolidates the teams, the siloed teams, and empowers the VMware admin to manage the compute and storages from the same UI. It provides the ideal architecture to scale out and to help, address compute intense resource of type applications. And it's really just the key to our software-defined data center and digital foundation. Next slide. If businesses don't evolve and change, they're really going to put themselves at risk. I talked to several IT executives at VMworld about a couple months ago, and they talked to me about three biggest fears they had, or the biggest risks they were looking at to the business. First one is higher costs. Legacy infrastructure is super expensive. Obviously, you know that. In the healthcare industry, a recent study came out and said 81% of IT budgets are going to just maintaining the infrastructure. That's obviously stifling investments. The second biggest thing is agility. Senior IT executives want to be agile for the business. They can't meet the demands of all the application changes that are coming at them, all the regulations. And the third biggest thing is security. They're really worried about security, putting their business at risk because of legacy infrastructure. All the manual lifecycle management processes could lead to cyber attacks, costing them billions of dollars and obviously hurting their brand. Next slide, Greg. The digital business requires digital foundation. I don't know if you've heard that, but according to IDC, 80% of all the enterprises out there are committed to a hybrid cloud architecture to protect their current investments and embrace the public cloud. Unfortunately, public cloud gives them an infrastructure and different operations that they don't have on-prem today in their VMware environment. So these heterogeneous environments become very siloed and they're very cumbersome and inefficient. So most people out there we're talking to are looking to a digital transformation to help them build on a secure and flexible digital foundation. VMware gives them that with a common software infrastructure layer with vCenter and vSAN, and it goes from the core to the cloud, all the way to from the edge to the core to the cloud. We give you that common control plane and that central location to deploy and manage every application, whether that application be on a physical, hardware with you on-prem or out in the cloud. So IT execs and most IT people don't want to have to re-platform or refactor the applications. That's takes too much time and too much cost. So they're starting to look to an underlying infrastructure that lets them, get rid of that siloed approach. And that's what we're calling the digital foundation, something that helps them be fluid, something that helps them be quick and agile, something that helps them provide security to protect from the internal and the external threats, something that helps them become compliant or enable compliance and ensure compliance, and something that helps them lower their TCO. Next slide, please. VMware gives you the most complete digital foundation, and everything is available today. That's worth pointing out. Most of the hyperconverged infrastructure software vendors out there are acquiring technologies and companies that are still in the 1.0 phase. VMware's been doing this for years. Our digital foundation has the largest ecosystem today in the market. We provide a common infrastructure for your workloads, no re-platforming required. We provide seamless mobility across all your deployments. We give you a choice of 500 plus ready node options to run the hyperconverged on that are both just certified through VMware and the OEM manufacturer. And we also give you an appliance version through VxRail through our Dell EMC mother corporate. So through these through these native services, you can run hyperconverged workloads on AWS and IBM Cloud or on demand, but we give you that common platform across everything. The digital foundation lets you manage this bigger ecosystem, and it helps address that operational model by simplifying and automating all of these processes across one common tool set. So with that said, I wanted to give you that background with The digital foundation, worth pointing out also, we provide native security here. So we secure your data at rest with this 140-2 validated security, and we allow microsegmentation to embed a firewall across all the VMs. So we reduce the risk of breach and impact. One of the things healthcare executives are very concerned about is regulations, and having these types of software built into these solutions, we obviously help you address that. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Greg and let him go more into vSAN.
Excellent. Well, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Appreciate your time getting on the call today. So thanks, Michelle. So if you look at digital foundation, what is it? How do we kind of get there? What are the steps that we take? Michelle spoke a little bit about what we did from a VMware perspective. I mean, sometimes I don't think we look into it and say, okay, about 20 years ago, when VMware came out with what we did from a compute perspective, we helped clients reduce their footprint. We helped them increase their efficiency of their servers, their compute aspect. How do we take that to the next level? So we're doing that today by helping clients with things like virtual networks. And we're helping clients from a storage perspective. And you probably heard the term vSAN, so the virtual storage area network. So we're helping clients modernize with this, what we call the hyper-converged infrastructure, or HCI, helping them take that to the next level. And clients and consumers of this aren't just doing that from, within their data center. They're doing it not only within their data center from a private perspective, but they're doing it in the public clouds. And not everyone's just doing it from one area or the other. They're doing what we might call a hybrid cloud. They want to have it within their data center. If they need to run these additional VMs or apps out in the cloud, they're going to do that and then bring it back as needed. So they're taking that step as they move forward. But what are these current challenges in healthcare? How do we sort of look at these things, right? Everyone says, and in almost any industry, they say, well, we have a limited budget. How do we do more with less? That's what we're being tasked to do. And that's a great question. And that's one of the things we're helping clients do when we help them move into this area we call HCI, hyperconverged infrastructure. You look at physician and technology burnout rate, people are doing a lot of sort of manual tasks, even though it may be sort of IT related, but they're having to either use maybe some kind of dictation software that turns it into text or words, and there are just a lot of moving parts and things that are helping them to be inefficient in their environment. And we want to help clients be more simplistic and be more efficient in that area. Things like regulations and silos, a regulation should not create a technology. In a matter of speaking, it's kind of interesting when you look at that. So hyperconverged infrastructure introduces this new operational model, what we call the digital foundation. So we spoke a little bit before about what we've done from a compute perspective, right? You have CPU, your RAM, you do things like vMotion, all the things that you're familiar with within VMware. We help consolidate and take those different nodes and put them together and run something that we call a virtual storage area network, and we tie that directly in at the hypervisor level. We're not above it, we're right at that. So we're getting the most efficient use of the technology, we're getting high rates of IOPS, we're getting the capacity we need, and we pull that all together and make that virtual across your environment. So it's seamless to the end user in a matter of speaking. And we use areas like vRealize that help us do monitoring, alerting, and tying all that together. So we're not just having a system that's running, we're actually able to make sure that it's running correctly, because it's really the SLA that we're giving to our clients in the end, right? Our team members internally. And then we tie that together and allow you to set specific policies on VMs within your environment, down to that kind of level. And that's the thing that we can do as we move forward into this HCI model. And then as you move out and you want to do something like a hybrid cloud, we give you that ability and flexibility to not only take it within your data center, but to take it out and then bring it back again as needed. So we deliver this industry software. It's not something that's coming in the future. That's available today. We help you to natively integrate mission critical applications into your environment. So we create that centralized management, and that's important to know too. So you're not learning something new in that perspective. You turn on, engage and turn vSAN on within your environment, but you're still using vSAN. You're using a lot of, the same GUI and the application that you're familiar with today. So you're not learning something new and having to have an additional component to do that as you move forward in your environment. And again, we want to help you create simplicity and remove that complexity. So we help create that digital foundation today. So any app in any cloud. So whether you're using any business critical application like Exchange, SQL, Oracle, SAP, or you're running containers in your private cloud or your environment today, and user computing, all these different areas, we give you the ability to exchange with these cloud native applications to run these critical workloads. So if you want to use and from a public cloud perspective and then bring that back, we give you that flexibility to go back and forth as you need to day to day. Again, creating that simplicity in your environment. With that, Mr. Liel, I will hand the share over to you, and then I will jump back in a little bit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next slide, Adam. So if we look at what is vSAN at a much deeper level. So if we look at what we've done to compute over the past 20 years, we're doing it to storage, where we're leveraging local flash, and in some cases, we're using local spinning disk. And we're aggregating the total storage consumption. And as you provision virtual machines, we determine where is the ideal placement. And I think one of the areas where virtual SAN is different than traditional approach is today, if you look at your traditional storage array, your performance is going to be measured on which model you pick and choose. Typically, it's going to be a two-storage architecture or two-storage controller architecture. So your performance is always going to be dictated by the storage controllers that you will go out and purchase. That number is fixed. And after 3 or 4 years, your storage partner comes back and sells you a new one. How vSAN is different is every single host that you see out there is a storage controller. So we're going to pool all the storage. We're going to manage it through Virtual Center. When you provision virtual machines, we determine where is the ideal placement. Next slide, please. And there's two flavors, as I briefly mentioned in the other slide. So there's all-flash vSAN, which today is the gold standard that we see within the data center. And then the second flavor is hybrid. We'll see hybrid utilized in remote office locations, edge computing, remote clinics, smaller locations, or again, the other alternative is to use all flash. In terms of the type of hardware that we're picking and choosing, we have 2 tiers of storage, both caching device as well as a data persistent device. Both flavors of vSAN have different performance metrics as well. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of having both private and public cloud, as Michelle mentioned earlier, we want to give you freedom of choice. So if you're a Dell shop, you're an HP shop, you're a Hitachi shop, it doesn't matter. We are certified with a number of different server vendors that are out there. So you get the choice of leveraging your existing server platform, or if you want something with the easy button, you're able to take advantage of products like VxRail. And if you want to go over to the cloud, you can certainly leverage the cloud as well. And I think what's really relevant in this slide is vSAN is the common storage platform across both environments. So you are able to storage vMotion, migrate your workloads from private cloud to public cloud without having to re-platform. And if you change your mind, move from public back to private, you could do the same. Again, that is a unique capability that only we offer. Next slide, please. Now, and we kind of glossed over this one already. So again, private, public, freedom of choice. You want to migrate out, migrate back in. No need to re-platform any of the workloads. Next slide, please. And some of these slides I'm going to gloss over in consideration of time. Now, the other thing that we've done with vSAN is a couple years back, we had a product called the VMware Virtual Storage Appliance, the VSA. And the VSA was designed for VDI use cases, as well as smaller deployments, the mom and pop shops that wanted to take advantage of the capabilities that we provide at the vSphere level, such as vMotion, DRS, HA, and so forth. and they wanted to take advantage of those capabilities, but didn't have the budget to go out and buy a physical SAN. So we introduced the VSA. VSA was great, but what we found is having a virtual storage appliance consumed a lot of resources on every host and was a performance bottleneck. So we knew that the next generation product had to be built into the hypervisor. So now it's completely native. You do consume some CPU cycles, but it's pretty limited. And there's a little bit of a small RAM footprint. So again, it becomes a very cost-effective solution that will give you the performance levels that you need. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of management, Greg briefly touched on, our goal is not to add more things to your more administrative tasks or increase your OpEx cycles. Everything is managed and configured through what you already know, which is Virtual Center. And within Virtual Center, we have redesigned with the latest release of the 6.7 Update 1, where all of the workflows are in one location. If you have previous versions, the workflows are there. They're just in different tabs. So we're listening to customers, adding the workflows that are needed, everything from validating the hardware, testing the networking, writing, testing the storage, and validating that your environment is nice and healthy. So this is all built into Virtual Center. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of one of the other things that we've added was Update Manager Aware. So now, as customers use Update Manager to update their environment, now VUM understands that you have vSAN running under the covers, and it validates all of the vSAN specific components in order to give you that single point of upgrade and patch management. So now, as you upgrade your clusters, VUM will bring down all the bits and bytes. It will validate your hardware. It'll validate the vSAN HCL and ensure that everything that is updated is compliant, not only from a vSphere perspective, but also from a hardware perspective. So we'll make sure to ensure that you're using the correct drivers on the network cards and so forth. So again, very, very simple in terms of updating, and it's okay. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of encryption, this is an area that we found a lot of interest. And in vSphere, we introduced vSphere-based encryption. And what we have is really two options. You use vSphere-based encryption or vSAN-based encryption. And really the difference is with vSAN-based encryption, we will dedupe, compress the data, and encrypt it at the very end. Doesn't require any specialized type of drives. There's no need for self-encrypting drives or anything along those lines. This is all completely software-based. We're going to leverage your existing KMS tools that are out there, and there's again a long list of partners that are out there. So again, you have the choice to use vSphere-based encryption or vSAN-based encryption. If you choose to use vSphere-based encryption, just do note that the encryption is done a la carte, meaning you pick and choose which VMs you want to encrypt, and there is no dedupe and compression savings at that point. So we highly recommend leveraging vSAN-based encryption. Next slide, please. Now, because vSAN is built into the hypervisor, this gives us the ability to truly innovate in terms of features that customers are looking for. So if you look at this long list, and this is not the complete list, by the way, otherwise it would be way too busy of a slide. But as you can see, every couple times a year, we introduce a new version or update. And with each update and version, we include new capabilities that customers are asking for. Next slide, please. So right now, as you'll see, our latest release is 6.7 Update 1. And these are some of the highlights. It's updated. We're using the Clarity interface. We're taking advantage of FIPS 142 certification, as we mentioned. And there's a number of different additional features that we've added. But again, I won't go into every single detail, but do note that also every single time you do an update to vSAN, chances are your environment's going to even run faster. And as an example, customers that were using vSAN 5.5 and migrated to 6, their performance numbers doubled. And with each iteration, we continue to tune out our algorithms to make your environment run even faster by simply doing the update. Next slide, please. Now, like every good storage vendor or partner, we have two tiers of storage. We have a caching tier and we have a capacity tier. And your caching tier, typically you're going to have 1 to 2 or even more caching devices per physical host. And then you're going to have a capacity tier. This is where your data lives and resides long term. And typically what we find is for hybrid environments, we'll use 10K RPM SAS drives, 7200 RPM SATA drives in some cases for long-term archival. But as I mentioned earlier, right now the gold standard is all flash. And the price difference, we've had a number of customers come back and say, well, you know, all flash was more expensive, and it shouldn't be. We take into consideration dedupe compression. For server workloads, we see 2 to 1. For VDI workloads, we see about 4 to 1. So the cost delta is pretty non-existent when comparing both hybrid and all flash. Next slide, please. Now, within each physical host, we have what's called disk groups. So every host has a single caching device, or a disk group has a single caching device and a single capacity device. You could scale a disk group by adding up to 7 capacity devices. And you can have up to 5 disk groups. So every single server can have up to 5 caching devices and 35 capacity devices. What that gives you is flexibility, on-demand scaling. Next slide, please. So, you know, there's no need to buy over purchase storage as we have done in the past for so long. You buy what you need today, and as you require more storage, or if you need more compute, you can simply add more additional drives to your physical host, or you could even expand out and actually hit, go to the next slide, please. So scale up if you need more storage, or scale out if you need more compute. And if the day comes where you're out of slots on your physical server, you could simply upgrade those drives. We could dehydrate the drives, put in the biggest, baddest, latest drives that are out there, and expand your capacity by just simply upgrading storage devices. Next slide, please. Our goal is to give you a much more granular control in terms of scaling, because we know that that 3.84 terabyte capacity device today is going to be cheaper tomorrow, and it's going to be cheaper a year from now. And chances are, you know, if you follow the roadmap of the flash vendors, they're going to continue to increase capacity as well as performance with every different iteration. And vSAN is ready to take advantage of those new technologies. Next slide, please. If you look at today, where we're at, we'll see your typical flash device, SAS-based SSD or NVMe for caching devices, and then you'll see either a spinning drive or an SSD, or in some cases NVMe's for capacity devices as well. One of the trends that you'll begin to see, and most likely in 2019 and forward, is the ability to use byte addressable memory. So NVDIMM and DRAM technology is here, and it's going to introduce and give you the capabilities to achieve much higher levels of performance than anyone could ever possibly imagine. And again, these are all devices that you simply swap out on your physical host and take advantage of. Next slide, please. Now, in terms of the use cases, I've been doing this for the past 5 years, and initially we started off with VDI, test dev, very, very similar trajectory that we followed when vSphere first came out. Those were the workloads that vSAN fulfilled. Now, pointing in a direction, you'll find customers running Oracle, SQL, management clusters, disaster recovery, disaster avoidance. There's a big there's a big trend right now on the container side and cloud native apps. So that's where we're seeing a lot of traction these days. I would comfortably say probably 90 to 95% of your workloads today can easily sit on top of vSAN. The 5 or 10% that don't sit on vSAN yet is because the application owner, the application vendor has some special certification, or they require some kind of proprietary hardware. Next slide, please. Now here's a quick example. We did a survey a while back and asked customers, what workloads are you seeing the most often? And these were by far the 5 most popular in terms of workloads that are taking advantage of Flash. So again, SQL, Oracle, SAP. We've been doing it all day. We have reference architectures on these types of applications that you can take advantage of. Next slide, please. And then this is the next generation apps that we're seeing. Everything from the Hadoops and the Dockers, they are here. As a matter of fact, just yesterday I was at a pharmaceutical where we're talking about their Hadoop clusters and Kubernetes as well. So we're seeing a big trend and big shift movement towards these types of workloads. Next slide, please. Now, as far as the other type of application that we're seeing these days are the shared nothing, the Hadoops of the world, where the resiliency is already built into the application itself. And instead, when you deploy a workload, you want VMs to be pinned to specific hosts. So we do have support for this at this point. It is RPQ only, so what that means is let us know that you're going to be deploying this, and we'll validate and approve the configuration, and you can move forward. And the beautiful thing about this is now you're able to take advantage of all the capabilities that vSphere offers for those types of workloads. Next slide, please. And then I'll hand this back over to Greg. He'll cover the vSAN benefits and use cases.
All right, Gilbert, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So let's keep moving. So transformative healthcare initiatives, right, made possible by vSAN. All right, so what does that mean? Security is a big, something that's on everyone's mind today, right? We want to make sure we safeguard that data. And Gilbert spoke with us a little bit. I think Michelle may have touched on it before too, that we have encryption that's available, FIPS 140-2 in the environment, right? So we make sure that your data is locked as need be. And that's really important today in today's environment. We talked a little bit about cost. Clients are always looking to lower TCO. vSAN is going to help you do that. It deploys easily. We have different ways to deploy it in your environment, whether it's a vSAN Ready node, VxRail. We kind of talked about that a little bit. So give you that efficiency and simplicity. If you want to do remote office type solutions, we have those available too. And it's flexible for the scale that you're looking to do, meaning it deploys with ease and preparing for the future, as it's saying on the slide. We give you that ability to grow as you need in your environment, so you don't have to have a huge sort of investment up front where we looked at it from a traditional perspective where we say, okay, we got to have this much storage available and we're not exactly sure, but we're going to put this in anyway and spend this money. Maybe it's an environment where we want to get something to start with and we grow as we need to in the future, and we give you that flexibility to grow as you need to in your architecture within your within your data center. I'm going to have Michelle speak to the TCO slide here, and then I will jump back in. So Michelle?
Yep, thanks, Greg. So I wanted to provide an actual example of a total cost of ownership analysis we did for a real healthcare customer located here in Minnesota. I'm not at liberty to tell you who. However, I can tell you about what their ROI savings look like. they were looking to consolidate their data center. They've actually been looking at that for about the last 2 years. But this particular application, an IHR app, required basically a modernized, driver. They needed to refresh hardware, they needed to refresh storage, and they didn't want to go with the traditional array approach. So we looked at their TCO, and they were a tough customer because they were only paying $1.50 per gig for their traditional storage, which is well under the industry standard cost. Industry standard, through all the analyst information we're getting, tells us it's right around $7 to $8 a gig. In this case, they're only paying 1.5. So we obviously had our work cut out for us. After doing a live optics assessment, we were able to get the ready node sized appropriately for this application. And as the TCO translates, I know you can't see all the numbers, but we essentially saved them $1.4 million over 5 years on 1 petabyte of usable capacity. So normal rule of thumb for us at VMware with any TCO exercises we're doing on vSAN is usually about a half petabyte of storage translates to $1.5 million of savings. In this case, it was, they paid so much less for storage that it was kind of upside down, but still saving them a lot of money in the long run, and also giving them all the benefits of simplifying the management. They were a big vRealize shop, so they were able to do everything through vSphere, vCenter, and vRealize. They have a software-defined approach now, so they have storage policies at the VM level. So when they move workloads on-prem to out in the cloud, they are able to handle that. And it also gave them a better improvement with capacity and I/O performance using all flash. They went with Dell EMC hardware, but we also offer HP, Hitachi, Lenovo, all the usual vendors out there. So it really gives you a lot of choice out there when you look at vSAN. Now they have a pay-as-you-grow model, so they don't have to pay for a lot of storage that they're not using for the next 5 years. They can actually just keep adding nodes and or scaling up with CPU. So that's what I've got for a real-world example. I'm happy to share a more an anonymous report if you guys would want that. Just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Michelle. Thank you. So Epic. So just want to touch on this. So all NVMe solutions for database workloads we are testing right now for Clarity and the Cache database. So if you need additional information on that, let us know. But we do have a recommended platform with Epic Hyperspace that we've been running for several years now. And that's something that we're very proud of. And, we're always working to enhance vSAN as we move forward. So as we move into the future, we'll be adding additional enhancements. And again, if you need additional information in this area, definitely let us know. And let's jump into this. So integration with print services. What's really important about this slide is we remove the need to NAT every printer or device connected for your BCA reports. So we bring the services out to those environments and put them closer to those offices where you have the, your printer services that are required, basically reducing the amount of NAT resources that are required in your environment, and basically extending your business continuity for your clients in your environment. And then Meditech, so customers are delivering, Meditech client through Horizon with vSAN. And again, if this is an area that you're interested in, let us know. Working with background jobs or file servers, this is something that, we have experience in, and we can obtain additional information or send that out to you after the call. And again, I'm trying to go through these myself because I want to be sensitive to your time schedule. So from clients, one of the big medical clients that we work with is Cerner. So they were looking for something that would improve their time to market with vSAN ready nodes that were, hence the name, but ready to go in your environment. And they wanted the flexibility. They wanted to be able to deploy it. They wanted to be able to grow it as needed and add it to their remote offices. Obviously, they're, a very large client. They wanted that ease of use, the simplicity that everyone looks for under daily administration. Because we all have homes to go to, right? And the last thing we want to do is be taking care of additional things that we may not need to. So why not use that in your environment? So, they were looking to, uses for their tier 1 applications like Exchange and Citrix and so forth. So we're able to help them take to the next level. And there's a link there, and again, after the call, let us know if you'd like to obtain that, and we can definitely get that to you. So vSAN for remote offices. We offer this flexibility, and I think, you know, when Gilbert was talking before, he may have touched on this. So we offer you the ability to not only have stretch clusters, but we have robo type environments where we can add it to smaller branch offices as need be within your environment. And we can do up to 25 VMs per site with that specific license. And the most important piece is, as you're doing this kind of development, as you're creating this architecture in your environment, we all do this with one vCenter instance. You're not going to multiple GUIs to have to configure, manage, so on and so forth. We still create that ease of use that you're used to with VMware, and we create it in your environment right where you're at today. So we spoke a little bit before about stretch clusters, and this is something that clients are asking about. They say, hey, we want some kind of, you know, HO, we want some kind of resiliency, we want to reduce our RPO. We give you those type of, you know, intellectual property within our platform to allow you to do that, just to make sure that you have your systems up, that your systems are always ready. So if a site is either has to be taken down maybe for maintenance, or maybe you have a need of a disaster recovery plan, you want to have some kind of, you know, an emergency situation, we give you, again, that flexibility and that simplicity to do that. And this is very straightforward to set up within your environment. And generally it's a 2-site setup, and then we have a 3rd site for a witness. And the witness can be a physical or a virtual type of instance in that specific setup. PACS, right, Picture Archive Communication System. We are also work with that too. So we start, you know, storing PACS database and images on vSAN block storage or on file services is definitely available. Obviously, you know, a lot of hospitals and medical environments use this. We're all familiar with this ourselves, right? So we are the type of platform that you can definitely store these type of images on and store that type of data as need be as you move forward in your daily day-to-day. Differentiators for healthcare. We've kind of touched on a lot of these, so I won't go real deep on this slide, but creating that simplistic type environment, helping you reduce your TCO. I know Michelle spoke about that a little bit. Giving you the simplified management. Again, one place to go and do everything you need to in your environment without having to learn a lot of new technology, because we can enable vSAN in your current environment. You know, pending, we have to make sure that, you know, there's HCL requirements too, but we're giving you that flexibility, that simplicity, giving you the security that you need, right? The last thing you want to be is that company that's on the news because there was a security breach. So we help with encryption, we help with simplicity, we help take you to that next level and help you consolidate, right? Because storage has always been about, let's put the storage in and let's hope that it, you know, works with what we have. Why not go with the avenue of grow as you need to, scale as you want to, scale up, scale out? We give you that viewpoint, that focal point to allow you to take you to the next level. So customer success is in healthcare. Bay State Health, we help them with a, you know, up to a 50% CapEx saving, and even in the OpEx areas, because really that's what it's about. A lot of times when I talk with clients, okay, this is great, the technology looks exciting, we really like it, but you know, what actual savings are we going to get? Let us help you look into that. You know, Michelle talked a little bit about the TCO. We can help you understand what your savings can be in your environment. Every environment is going to be different, just like at Temple University. You know, we're able to combine 5 siloed data centers, right? I call those also islands of automation. And if you have all these different areas that are sort of separate because we grow, because one medical group decides they want an application, so they buy a system, and then somebody else has one, so on and so forth. Suddenly you have this, you know, disparate islands of automation, or these siloed data centers. Let us help you pull those kind of things together and help you down that path of simplicity and reduce your cost, really, because that's really what it's about, right? It's about increasing efficiency. What I'd highly recommend, and what I ask when I talk with clients, is we have something called a hyperconverged infrastructure assessment. We do have a live optics assessment. We help gauge what's in your environment from physical, you know, your physical servers, understand the IOPS, understand how much storage you're using, how much CPU are you actually using, and helps us help you move ahead in that type of environment. So reach out to us, let us know. We'd be more than happy to help you take you to that next level. because it's really, again, about simplicity. It's about removing and reducing complexity and helping you take that path to the digital foundation. And with that, I'm going to finish up and we'll open it up to any questions. Or, as I like to ask, are any answers?
That's funny.
I must have finished it off. That's okay.
They're not.
There's still people on here, right? Okay.
Yeah. So, Gilbert or Greg, do you want to expand a little bit more on the live optic assessment and what benefits customers get and what information it provides?
Sure. I can handle that. Yeah, I can handle that. Let me kind of jump through here. So that's an excellent segue. So the live optics is a non-intrusive. It's a painless type of assessment that we do in client environments. We use your email. I send you a link. It's got an executable. You run it. It goes out and basically understands a different type of servers in your environment, gives us better insight to the CPU, to the IOPS, to what you're actually using from a disk usage perspective. It gives us some insight into your hosting clusters. Again, this is non-intrusive, and if you're in an environment that you cannot send data out, we do have an option where we can get the file from you later and have you FTP it up. So the nice thing about live optics is it's very straightforward. It actually shows information like, as in this example, it will kind of give us some idea of, again, what's in your environment. And we run this through with you, and it's a free assessment. There's no cost in that specific instance, and we can run it in your environment and then go through it with you on the phone or in person and help you to understand where you're at today. And this helps us to architect the right solution for your environment if that's the route you want to go. And Gilbert, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Yeah, and guys, at a minimum, what it's able to provide for you, whether you buy vSAN or not, it gives you a comprehensive view of your total environment, how much CPU you're using, how much RAM, how much storage, what kind of I/O pattern you're running. So it gives you a really good view of where you're able to take advantage of some savings to help justify a case. And that same data is what we use, as Greg mentioned, in order to properly size you with a vSAN ready node. And guys, just what is a vSAN ready node? Think of them as pre-configured, pre-architected, t-shirt size vSAN nodes. Small, medium, large. Depending on the use case, you fit in a small. You got VDI, maybe you should fit in a large. So there's a wide variety of sizes based on the specific use case, and they come from your server manufacturer. So with the live optics data, we could import that into our sizing tool and tell you exactly what configurations you should fall into. And that's what I have.
That's awesome. So I see there are a few questions around Epic and cache. Epic cache and vSAN. So I don't know, Christian or Greg, you wanna maybe say a few things about that? Where we are, like at the testing level, and as an inner system cache is tested and certified with vSAN, but we are going out of testing. So I don't know if you want to add something, or you think the answers we have provided in Q&A are enough.
No, I mean, this is Christian. I'll go ahead and speak to it since I'm actually doing the testing. So I've been working with InterSystems, who actually owns Cache, and we've had that certified now for a couple of years, and even their new version of Iris Data Platform. So we have those two certified. And so the difference between Epic's Cache requirements and InterSystems, they're a bit more stringent, and even though that the underlying technology is somewhat similar, it's also changed once Epic actually takes the cache instance and they morph it. So their requirements and their workloads become a bit more stringent, really, in their processes. And just from a day two operations perspective, they have certain requirements that that we're working to meet. And so that's really it. It's just it's an ongoing process, and I can't give any timelines, unfortunately, just because it's something that we just work on together, the folks in Verona and myself and a couple others. Anything else, Adam, or
No, I think that's pretty good. Thanks, Christian. So we have answered. Okay, looks like there are more questions coming up in the Q&A.
And Brett, the same thing goes. I'll type the answer to you, Brett. But yes, the same thing goes with Clarity. Clarity, the way that we wanted to approach this with Epic is to have so that there's no confusion, is to have both those databases being supported at the same time. Although the requirements aren't as stringent as they are for Clarity, or aren't as stringent as they are for Clarity as they are for Cache, it's this, we want to have the clear messaging. And definitely from an Epic perspective, I really respect that. I don't want to have mixed messaging of what's supported and what isn't, or what's a target or recommended platform from that perspective. So.
All right. There are two more questions in Q&A. First, Dean is asking, how many node failures can a vSAN environment handle before the cluster fails?
So if we look at the architecture, so the minimum number of vSphere nodes or vSAN nodes that you could have is 2. And 2 we typically see, again, in edge use cases, remote clinics, and so forth. You could scale those 2 nodes up to 64. 64 nodes. And so the scalability is there. Now, in terms of failure domains, we have a setting, and we didn't touch on during this deck or this presentation. We have a feature called storage policy-based management. So think of the traditional storage world. You live and die by creating LUNs. You create a LUN, you set up the RAID set, and then you determine how many VMs can live on that LUN. And you cross your fingers hoping that you don't over-provision that LUN. So with that being said, if you look at traditional storage, it's 2 storage controllers. You lose 1 storage controller, you're at 50% degradation. You lose a second controller, you have an outage. In vSAN, within storage policy-based management, you could pick and choose what type of data servers you want, RAID 5, RAID 6, RAID 1, RAID 0, checksums, and so forth. You pick and choose the data service, and you also pick and choose the resiliency level. So you could do a fail target of 0, which we see for VDI non-persistent workloads, and you could increase that up to 3. So you could lose up to 3 physical servers within a single cluster. Now, taking a step back, we've seen average cluster sizes range anywhere from 8 to 16. I've seen 20, and some of our bigger customers, we've seen up to 32 and 64 nodes. So you could sustain up to 3 nodes within a cluster. And what we typically find is anything over 2 node failure, it's an environmental issue, meaning your whole environment went down. Is it common for us to see, within the vSphere environment, having a single node failure? I think everyone has. Double node failure within a cluster, a little harder. 3 node, at that point, we should play the lottery.
Right, and thanks, Gilbert. And I think that's where I talked a little bit before about stretch clusters, but then you look into additional type of environments where you might want some kind of HA, right? So we would expand on that.
Yeah, you had talked about a 2-node remote access solution for vSAN. We were always understanding you had to have 3 nodes. So can you speak a little bit about the 2-node remote solution?
Yes. So, and I'll tell you one thing that we're very proud of. Here in the Midwest, we lead globally with robo deployments. We have a ton of clinics as well as retail, especially in the retail space. So initially, we needed 3 nodes. And the reason we needed 3 nodes is we spread the components of vSAN like peanut butter across all 3 nodes. And then we also spread a component called the witness. And that witness, the only purpose in life is to determine if you lose something, who's alive. So we would write data on the first node, data on the second node, and then write a witness component on the third. If you lose node 1 or 2, the witness determines who's alive. One of the things that we've been able to do over the past couple of years is to separate out that witness, and you can put that witness in a data center, you can put it in the cloud, put it somewhere else. It doesn't matter. You put it, what we typically find is most customers will put it in a data center of some sort because they're going to have multiple sites. So you put the witness VM, which is a virtualized ESXi VM, in your data center, and then you can have your 2 nodes. If one of those 2 nodes fails, the other one has a copy of your data and the virtual machines restart. And then going even further, what we typically find, what we started to see probably about a year and a half ago with 2 nodes, is we have customers actually here regionally in our region that said, you know what, we want to do all flash for our 2-node deployment, just because of the cost of flash has dropped. In order to do all flash vSAN, we required a 10 gig infrastructure. Customers came back and said, look, if I have to put 10 gig infrastructure across 100 sites, that's going to be very costly. So one of the things that we've done is introduce the ability to do cross connect. So literally, you put a crossover cable between both servers, and that becomes your data path for all data that's being written by vSAN. So we could even further reduce costs at that point. But good question.
Thank you.
We have another question in the Q&A. From Carl? Is there a difference in the way raw versus? Okay, looks like somebody took it away. Oh, I think Christian is answering on this. So, all right, the another question that came in: what is the storage efficiency of the physical storage per node? In other words, how much storage overhead is required per node?
So storage overhead, okay. So if you look at the 2 tiers of storage, you have a caching tier and you have a capacity tier. The caching tier, those devices do not count for storage for long-term or placement of storage long-term. That is only a caching device or the caching tier. Your capacity tier, you can have up to 35 devices. Realistically, what we typically find is customers are going to populate half of their slots on their host. They're going to typically have 2 disk groups, and within those disk groups, the amount of overhead is going to be dictated by which data service you want. So there is a little bit of overhead, typically measured in megabytes for vSAN. Where the overhead comes in is what data service you want. So as an example, if I select a failure tolerate of 1, which means I could sustain an entire node failure and I have a second copy sitting across the other nodes. So in that case, my overhead is 2x. So 100 gig VM is really 200 gigs of storage. If I select RAID 5, then my overhead is 33%. If I select RAID 6, my overhead is 50%. So depending on which data service you pick and choose will determine how much, what your overhead would be. And now in going even further, in terms of CPU cycles, because that's probably would be a follow-up question, vSAN uses CPU, and it's typically measured for production data center workloads. What I've seen personally, it's the CPU overhead is typically in the teens. And depending on which data service you want, that number could increase. If you're doing resyncs, if you lose nodes, whatever the case, that CPU will spike up a little more, but typically it spikes up by single digits. And it's, again, determined based on what data service you pick and choose. And memory overhead is extremely small, pretty much non-existent at this point.
All right,
good question, guys. Keep them coming. Keep them coming.
So actually, we have hit our time limit, and I don't see any other questions in Q&A. And Michelle, do you want to announce the winners? Actually, we have two winners. So if you want to, you can unmute yourself and announce, and then we will send the email to those winners.
Okay. We are awarding. We're going to actually bend it a little bit and award 2 gift cards for $50 Amazon. We've got Brett from St. Luke's, and Brendan May, I believe is his last name.
Yes.
We're going to award those to you guys. Thank you so much. I'll get your email addresses. I believe I can get them from Adam and Bradley on the call here.
Yeah, we will get you that. And thanks everyone. Great questions and good participation. And just to let you know, this session was recorded, and I will send out the recording later on Monday, and you can forward that to your team members, or if you want to review it again, we can do that. And so thanks everyone, and thanks for all the presenters. Great job.
Thank you guys.
Thank you, Adam.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thanks, Adam.
All right, bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.